morning and happy Sabbath. We'd like to welcome you to the Granite Bay Seventh-day Adventist Youth Sabbath School. My name is Tanner Fisher, and if we would like to introduce ourselves.
All right, my name is Jamie.
I'm Bo.
And my name's Lucas.
We're excited to have you guys here this morning. Before we get into the study this morning, we would like to go over a few announcements. First off, Zoom is going to be at 7:30 this Monday. We would love to have you there. It's been a great blessing so far. We'd also like to know where you guys are from. We have viewers from all around the world, and if you guys could leave it in the comments just watching, that would be amazing. We also want to hear what you guys have to say on the topic we're studying this morning. If you have any questions you would like to raise or ask us, or if you guys have any input, we would like to get those from you guys as well. We're going to be studying this morning, but before we do that, we would like to have a word of prayer. So, Bo, would you mind having a word of prayer for us?
Absolutely. All right, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you that you gave us the opportunity to gather together today and dive into your word, Lord, and ask as we study this topic that it opens up some people's eyes and realizes what kind of people we are. And Lord, I ask that as we are followers of Christ, that we do it diligently and seek everything to his honor and his glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
So what type of Christian are you? I know it's a very generic question or very vague, but I think one way we can start this discussion of what type of Christian you are is by looking at the Christians in the Bible. So no, there's, a lot of different people who for all intents and purposes we can talk about as Christians. But what are some of the Christians that you guys were reading about this week?
For me, I had a few, but the one that really stuck out to me was Peter, though. Peter really stuck out to me because and I said he was the peer pressure Christian, because the story that comes to mind for me with Peter is when he's when Jesus is about to be crucified, and then at the fire with all the people, he denies Jesus 3 times, and it's he's kind of peer pressure Christian because everyone around is oh, do you know that guy? Do you know him? And he's no, I don't know him. It's like today when because a lot of people and people our age go through a lot of peer pressure, and we, especially for our faith too, in the secular world, it's sometimes taboo, or there's a stigma against being a Christian. And so it's we shouldn't deny Jesus. That's literally because Jesus is for us and we are Christians, and we should be proud of being Christian and Christ followers. But sometimes it's I just saw the thing that Peter did is something that a lot of people our generation can do, and so it's just I just made that connection. So
Yeah. No, so true. What about you guys?
That was a good one.
It was
really good.
I was looking at the story of Little Maid, and I think it's very applicable also to our generation and our age group, because at this point we're kind of transitioning out of our households and we're starting to become our own individual people. So the story of Little Maid kind of shows that her faith wasn't just the faith of her parents, because she was away from her parents. She was taken away from her parents at a very young age. And now that we're all finally venturing out of the world, is our faith the faith of our parents, or is it our faith? And is it something that's personal to us? Is God just something that we've been raised in? We've been raised Seventh-day Adventists. We've been raised going to church because that's the right thing to do, so to speak. But is it genuine, or is it just done for tradition, I guess you could say?
And that's the maid of Naaman, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really good. Oh, do you have one you want to share with us?
Yes, I do. And this one is the thief on the cross. So I was thinking about what category of Christian you'd put him to, and I finally came up. You can consider him the last minute Christian. Specifically, he was a very bad person. He was probably a murderer or whatever, or a thief. Actually, that's what he was. He was on the cross, and he did recognize that Jesus was the Son of God, and he pretty much asked Jesus to save him, and Jesus did. I think with our time and generation with the youth, we're thinking that, Christ is coming soon, but it's not so soon that at last minute I can't just, get really close to him and then, be saved and it'll be all good. I think there's a difference between genuinely wanting Christ and recognizing that he's Christ, like the thief on the cross, and doing it last minute just for the sake of being saved.
Well, jump into. I also think it shows how actual merciful Jesus is.
Right.
Yeah.
Because this whole life he's literally done bad things. To be crucified in that time is literally you do the worst things.
Yeah.
So and the fact is he did all the worst things, and Jesus still in his last minutes of his life is you'll be with me one day.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's crazy.
It's really cool. It really does show the insane grace of everything.
Yeah.
Because it is true, but you also, referring back to what you're saying, you can't like justify that, being like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna, wreck my life now, but when I'm about to die, I'm gonna, it's
Exactly.
It's a fine balance, but it is
Yeah.
really cool to look at it that way.
Yeah.
Well, for you guys, just as a reminder, if any of these sound interesting or any other people in the Bible, please say in the comments different ideas. But for today, we're going to be looking at a specific character in the Old Testament by the name of Gideon. And that is in Judges chapter 6. And we'll be starting in verse 11. We'll be going through a little bit at a time. And we'll have Tanner read the first section. And we'll start in verse 11, and we're going to go to verse 14.
All right, Judges 6:11 through 14. And there came an angel of the Lord and sat under an oak, which was in Ophrah, and pertained to Joshua the Abiezrite, the son of Gideon, threshed wheat in the winepress and hid it from to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him and said, The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor. And Gideon said unto him, O my Lord, if the Lord be with us, why then does this befall us? And where be all his miracles, which our fathers told us, saying, Did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt? But now the Lord hath forsaken us, and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites. And the Lord looked upon him, and said, Go in this thy might, and thou shalt save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent thee?
So prefacing this is the doubting Christian. I think, after reading through, we can all kind of agree. This is definitely the doubting Christian. But we see we'll start in verse 11. What is something that I guess is odd about verse 11, or something that you just wouldn't normally do?
The tree. He sat under a tree. It
Yeah,
didn't
just
give
those-
really any context. Just that he sat under a tribunate tree.
I think
or oak
it's.
tree.
I think it's what he said. He threshed the wheat in the winepress. I think because I feel like that, and it says to keep away to hide it from the Midianites. So it obviously shows that this country Israel is oppressed in some way from these other forests.
Yeah, it is interesting because he's doing that because
Yeah.
he's hiding, and then the angel just walks up, like you were saying, and just sits under a tree, just like watches him.
Yeah.
It's definitely a different experience. It's not the cliche cookie cutter angel experience.
Yeah, it's not a typical like coming from
Yeah.
from the sky with it coming down. It's just probably looked like a normal person. I'm assuming maybe too, just sitting on a tree. Maybe, who knows? Like it just seems like this is very very normal of an encounter. I feel like when it comes to a normal person, but not an angel.
So then going into verse 12, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor. I don't know, when I read that, I thought it was really ironic. You have this dude who's literally hiding in a wine press to get wheat, and he calls him mighty. I don't know.
Very counterintuitive.
Yeah. It seems very ironic that they have that. He's still... It's almost as if he calls him mighty because of not who he is now, but what he's going to be.
Yeah. Oh. That is.
I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
That would make sense. I feel like
He knows the potential of what's about to happen.
Exactly.
He knows that when the story is done, he will be that mighty man of valor that's going to lead Israel to bring his people or save them from the Midianites.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And you were mentioning something about the angel, actually, that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, let me find the exact word. I was looking at the original text in which the book was written, and the angel that's looked at what the angel was. It says that the angel that first came to start talking to him was, when you look at the original text, it says the angel was Jesus, pretty much. It says this angel would become a king. The rare, where's the original word? I think I got deleted, but yeah, the original word in the text was this angel will become a king, or is to become a ruler. And then later on we see that when the angel leaves, God continues talking to him. So he had an interaction with like two members of the Godhead. Jesus first comes to say, you mighty man of valor, and then later on when he makes the covenant, he makes that covenant directly with God.
Wow.
That is
That is
so cool, I think. That Jesus himself comes to him It wasn't something we see in the New Testament with like Zechariah, where, or just with different people in the New Testament, where an angel comes to them, but Jesus comes directly to Gideon.
It's a pretty rare occurrence.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, going into verse 13. Bo, you want to read that for us? Verse
Sure.
13.
Gideon said to him, "O my Lord, if the Lord is with us, then why has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites."
So what I'm seeing is right off the bat, he's just doubting. Right off the bat, just straight away. Like I feel like this occurrence of this angel meeting him doesn't like do anything affect him one bit. He's still just doubting at first.
It's interesting. Something when you're reading that I kind of noticed for the first time is it says, "Oh my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us?" He obviously doesn't know who this is. Because it says, "Oh my Lord," as in just being respectful. Like if the Lord is with us, in another person. It's interesting. He's completely doubting God when God's right there.
He's literally talking to him.
So that brings on the question: visually, did the angel look like an angel, too? Because I feel like if it looked like an angel, I feel like he would not say it right to the face. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't say it right to the face of the angel. I don't know. I mean, it could just be because angels come in many different forms, especially when they go to Earth. Like it's not going to be like we said, it's not a typical angel scenario with them coming from heaven or something like that. So I don't know. I feel like it could be like I don't think he would maybe say that right into it towards an angel, if he knew. But
Well, that especially goes to say, like, it just further proves that it was Jesus, because normally when an angel has an interaction with a human, if they're not disguised as a human, it's do not be afraid. But Jesus is in the form of man, since we were created in his image. So it's interesting to see that he came in human form as Jesus to display this message, and then he later turned it over to God.
yeah, you're right, because it doesn't say here like do not be
Do not
afraid. Like, and usually angels will say, "Do not be afraid."
That's interesting. Yeah, totally. All right, now finishing off the section 14. Then the Lord turned to him and said, Go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you?"
I can imagine at this point he's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's interesting that he says, "Go in the might of yours," but then he says, "Have I not sent you?" I know this isn't directly in relation with the doubting Christian, but I think it attributes to the fact that we can't just sit back and expect God to do everything for us. My English teacher jokes with us. He's like, if I've had students who they'll sit there and be like, "God, write my paper for me," and they'll just sit there, and you can't just do that. You have to put effort forward. You can't just sit back and be like, "Oh, whatever, God's gonna do whatever he does, and I'll just wait." He's telling Gideon, you have to go forward. But again, we see Gideon doubts for the fact.
Yep. Yeah.
Skipping down to 19 through 24. Jamie, you want to read that one? 19 through 24.
All right, it's 19 through 20. Okay. So Gideon went in and prepared a young goat and unleavened bread from an ephah of flour. The meat he put in a basket, and he put the broth in a pot. And he brought them out to him under the terebinth tree and presented them. So it's just, I guess he's just preparing the altar first. And the angel of God said to him, "Take the meat and unleavened bread and lay them on the rock and pour out the broth." And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord put out the end of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread, and fire rose out of the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. And the angel of the Lord departed out of his sight. Now Gideon perceived that he was the angel of the Lord. So Gideon was, "Alas, O Lord God, for I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." Then the Lord said to him, "Peace be with you. Do not fear, you shall not die." So Gideon built an altar there to the Lord and called it, "The Lord is Peace." To this day, it is still an oath for the Abiezrites.
That is so great. That is it's interesting. He's being courteous. He's giving him food,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, you can put it here on this rock. And all of a sudden, fire comes out and burns it up, and that's when it finally hits him who this is.
Yeah.
And I think something else that's kind of important to point out, we didn't quite mention it, but in verse 18, it says, "Do not depart from here, I pray, until I come back to you to bring out my offering and set it before you." And then he, speaking of God, says, "I will wait for you to come back." So even though we were talking about Gideon being the doubting Christian, God says, "I will wait." And when he goes home, it just shows that God is also patient with us. We may have our doubts, as we'll see later in the story. He has many more of these encounters with God. But through it all, even in our lives, God doesn't give up on us. He meets us where we are and then helps us get to where we need to be.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely a good point there. Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, he really prepared like a whole meal, pretty much, and it just burnt up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be pretty disappointing. All right, so yeah, he in verse 22 and 23. I like how 23, kind of where we were just talking about, he doesn't say peace to you, and then after this, once he's actually terrified, realizing what has happened, then he tells him, "Peace be to you. Do not fear, you shall not die."
Yeah.
It's weird how, because I was looking back at the one verse where he kind of doubts God, and it says that he recognizes him as a man. And then you look at the next verse, he changes. It's two Hebrew words. The first one that he used was Adoni, which is used for man when you're giving them respect. Mm-hmm. The next one is Adonai in Hebrew, which is used for God. And then he used it here, but then it actually the Bible says that he actually recognized that it was an angel of the Lord, which is weird to me because he already did that.
That's very interesting.
So yeah, it's almost not to belabor this point, but it's almost like he doesn't know who it is, and he sees God, but then he maybe doubts again, and then they're like, no, it is God. This is, like, you can't deny it.
All right, like, when is enough evidence at that point?
And he ends up still doubting later on too, with all this evidence that he's gotten so far.
Yeah.
And he ends up just getting more and more.
It's crazy. All right, let's skip down to verse 28. I'll read through that one quickly. And when the men of the city arose early in the morning, there was an altar of Baal torn down, and the wooden image that was beside it was cut down, and the second bull had been offered on the altar which had been built. So they said to one another, "Who has done this thing?" And when they had inquired and asked, they said, "Gideon, the son of Joash, has done these things." Then the men of the city said to Joash, "Bring out your son, that he may die, because he has torn down the altar of Baal, and because he has cut down the wooden image that was beside it." But Joash said to all who stood against him, "Would you plead for Baal? Would you save him? Let the one who pleads for him be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him plead for himself, because his altar had been torn down." Therefore, on that day he called him Jerubbaal, saying, "Let Baal plead against him, because he has torn down his altar."
Okay.
I think, go ahead.
No, go for it.
This is kind of one of Gideon's first displays of faith, because after God says, "You're going to be the person that I use to help drive out the Midianites," he says, "First, I want you to go and tear down this altar of Baal." And that was a offense that once committed, you were to be punished with death. So it's interesting that he goes ahead and follows through with God, what God told him to do. He went down, he did tear down the altar, but I thought it was interesting in, which verse is it? He says, "Let me go at night," instead of daytime. So it shows that while he is believing, he does wind up going and fulfilling what God said to do. He also does it at night.
Yeah, obviously, like, I guess he's not at that point where he's got full-fledged faith, you're saying. And so obviously at night there's less people, so it's like, okay, I can do this with less people. Obviously be discreet about destroying it too, but I feel there's something, it's like, it just kind of, it was convenient for him to do it at night, you know? And that's a lot of things too. I mean, a lot of people, this is in general right now, a lot of people are convenient Christians, you know, sometimes, you know? It's another thing is too, it's like, we'll do it when it's convenient, and I guess like this showing your faith when it's convenient. And I feel like in this point, obviously he is like doing what God told him to, but like it is pretty convenient to him. I don't know if he would have done it at that point during the day with a lot of people and like show his faith to a lot of people.
It makes me kind of think of Abraham, where, for example, Gideon, he tells me, go tear down the altar, and he's like, okay, I'll do it at night.
Yeah.
And you have Abraham, I'm going to make you great descendants. He's like, okay, but I'll do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, he has this. He still is trying to fulfill God's own word, but he's doing it through self. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does do it. Like you said, it was convenient.
It's very convenient. Yeah.
All right, skipping down to 36 now. 36 through 40. Tanner, if you want to read that for us.
Sure. Verse 36. And Gideon said unto God, If thou wilt save Israel by mine hand, as thou hast said, behold, I will put out a fleece with wool in the floor, and if the dew be on the fleece only, and dry upon the earth beside, then shall I know that you will save Israel by my hand, as thou hast said. And it was so, for he rose up early in the morrow, and thrust together, and wringed the dew and the fleece in a bowl of water. How far do you want me to go?
I think we should stop there for just a little bit to see. So, obviously, we see like he put the fleece on the water, and then it is dry. If it's dry on the ground and there's dew everywhere, then like that's the way it is, right? If there's only dew on the fleece, only it's dry on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the fleece is wet, and obviously that's what does happen. That's what happens, and then. Like, that's where we should probably stop for that right there. Is that he's like, so we know one thing God has shown, like, already, that she's shown that he's done that, and what Gideon told him to. So, yeah. We can keep going after that.
All right, moving on in verse 39. And Gideon said unto the God, where am I?
39.
Not 39, sorry. Where am I?
I think 39.
Is it 39?
Yes.
And Gideon said unto God, Let not thine anger be hot against me, and I will speak but this once. Let me prove, I pray thee, by this once with the fleece. Let it be now dry upon only the fleece, and wet upon the ground. I'm going to stop there, I'll go to 40.
You can go to 40.
And God did so that night, for it was dry upon the fleece only, and there was dew all on the ground. One of the things I found super interesting, I went and looked at what Ellen White said in Patriarchs and Prophets, and let me find the exact quote. She says, In the morning the fleece was wet, while the ground was dry. But now doubt arose, since wool naturally absorbs moisture when there is any in the air. This test might not be decisive. Hence he asked a sign to be reversed, pleading that this extreme caution might not displease the Lord, and his request was granted. So he's way over analyzing this. He's like, okay, well, maybe this fleece, because of the moisture that's in the air, maybe it collected some moisture, so I need it to be reversed. And he's trying to do it out of caution, so he doesn't want him throwing himself into a death trap by trying to do this amazing thing.
Which, I mean, it does, to an extent, I guess it does make sense, but if it's God, it's God. God's gonna be with you. I just find it really funny when he's like, just don't be angry with me. Like, I promised the last time or something like that. It's just, he's like, just one more, just one more, man.
It doesn't make sense because I know, like, with specific camping trips, when you leave like a towel or something outside and the ground is full of dew, your towel is usually soaked.
Yeah.
But this is specific. He asked for a specific sign. The ground was dry, and the fleece was completely soaked.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because he can still doubt after this thing that seems obvious. Everything is dry except for the fleece, but he still doubts.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah.
So then he says, do it the other way. He's like, oh, and God does it for him. But it gets a little weirder after that.
Yeah.
So let's go there. Start in verse 1. You read 2 or 3 verses, Jamie.
All right, I'll go to 3 for this one. So then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the well of Herod, so that the camp of the Midianites was on the north side of them by the hill and Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said to Gideon, The people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, my own hands have saved me. Now therefore proclaim in the hearing of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart at once from Mount Gilead. And 22,000 the people returned, and 10,000 remained.
Yikes.
It's
a lot of
big
people.
cut of people. It's a big cut. I mean, if I was Gideon in the shoes, I mean, I've already doubted God, and then also I don't want to die for a 2nd, and then third, I mean, I think I'd rather have 22,000 people than 10,000 people as it is, and God's like, not too many. It's like, how is too many in a war? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting. Do you guys know where it says how many Midianites were?
Yeah, I don't know if it mentions it in the actual text, but Ellen White records it later. She says it was about 120,000 men. 120,000 men.
120,000.
120,000 men against what we'll
So they're
later
already
see is a much smaller group.
They're already outnumbered as it is.
Yeah.
But- It's a lot.
Like, without God in this, they'd have no chance. Like, if God
0
wasn't with
chance.
them, they'd have 0 chance.
Totally. Even with everyone.
Yeah.
It is really radical to think that God tells him too many. You know, because you're like, well, God, don't you want me to help myself too? And it's like, nope, too many. You know, God really is trying to show to Gideon who he is.
Yeah.
I think that with Gideon's past record of doubting God, I think it's very justifiable, I guess you could say, for God to say to Gideon, no, like, you can't have this many. Because Gideon obviously doubted 3 other times with 3 other signs, and he's still doubting God now, and God's like, no, too many. Anyways, going from verse 4 to 7. Oh.
Okay. But the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Then it will be that of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you. The same shall go with you, and of whomever I say to you, this one shall not go with you. The same shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps from the water with his tongue, as a dog laps, you shall set apart by himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on his knees to drink, and likewise, and the number of those who lapped, putting their hands to their mouths, was 300. But all the rest of the people got down on their knees to drink water. Then it's to 7, right? Mm-hmm. Then the Lord said to Gideon, by the 300 men who lapped, I will save you and deliver the Midianites into your hands. Let all the other people go, every man to his place.
I'm not the best at math, but from what we've seen now, there's 120,000 Midianites, and now there's 300 people in Gideon's army. So that works out to be 400 to 1. And I don't know about you guys, but if I was put in a position where I had to fight 400 other people, I don't think I would last more than about half a millisecond. That's a lot of people.
Like I said, even 10,000, it's
Outnumbered
crazy
400 to 1.
Yeah, that's actually crazy.
I still don't get the test. He lapping like a dog compared to drinking it with your hand.
I guess it's just like a sign.
And
was
this already set up to where God made it to where the other, like, only 300 would?
It is interesting. You kind of wonder how much God was directly involved in this, because it wasn't like there was 373. No, it was 300.
Yeah.
It wasn't any more, any less. So
It was exactly. Yeah. I think at this point, to be honest, like because Gideon has doubted him so much, I think God at this point is just trying to like do as much as he can to be like, I'm gonna be with you. Like, he's just trying to make the odds so like interesting for Gideon. So like in the end, like, because obviously God always pulls through in these things, like that he's just gonna even grow even more in a stronger faith with God.
Maybe one thing that God was trying to put into his mind was, or one thing to grow his faith, usually the greater the trial, the greater the success, the greater the faith. It's usually how it grows. Yeah. And the 300, what was it, 400 to 1 you said?
Yeah.
For the odds. That's huge. That's really not good at all. But he already knew that once Gideon succeeds, that his faith would be so much greater, and he won't be as doubtful, or at least that was the point for him to do for Gideon.
Yeah, and emphasizing the point of their lack of qualifications. The only other time we see odds even close to this, in a lot large sense, is the epic of the Greeks or the Spartans.
Yeah.
And their odds are even less. But the thing is they all died, every single one of them, and they were trained warriors. They were. That's what their entire lives were.
Yeah.
But you have these Israelites who were most likely farmers,
Regular
whether-
people.
yeah,
Pitchforks and
Right? And later on, we see their weapons definitely were not these fancy weapons. They were, what were they? Like pots, torches, and trumpets.
Yeah. What are you
Generally,
gonna
I
do with the
wouldn't-
trumpet in a war
Yeah.
besides playing? You can't. All you do is play it.
Yeah, it's not like let's go to battle with a bunch of trumpets. Like if our general today, if the United States said that, we would probably send him to an insane asylum.
Yeah.
You don't do that
Yeah.
on so many levels. But the crazy part is God says, by the 300 men whom lap, I will save you and deliver the Midianites into your hand.
Yeah. He keeps saying it. He keeps saying, "I'll save you. I'll save you." And like being Gideon, like to be fair to Gideon, like I mean, obviously it's not great to doubt God, but I mean in these scenarios, I mean it's just it's testing of your faith, like to the max. I think in this scenario,
Oh, yeah,
just
humanly
putting it into
speaking,
perspective, 400 to 1. I mean, one person to kill 400 people
That's crazy.
Not gonna work very well.
with a not even a trained.
I don't even think
soldier
David's
either.
mighty men ever did that, any of them.
no, it's nothing. Even no battle compares to what these people had to go through.
It's crazy.
And Bo, to kind of answer the question you had raised at first, like what does it have to do with putting the water in your mouth
Right,
versus
right.
getting down on the? I had the same question when I was really confused. I was like, why would this be a test? I mean, there's a lot of odd tests in the Bible, but this test of choosing the 300 men, I was like, why this? And there is a reason for everything. So I continued on reading in Patriarchs and Prophets. And it's interesting, I'll kind of just summarize what she says. She says that the reason why it wound up being limited down to the 300 men was because the 10,000 men were kind of already moving towards the Midianites. The 22,000 had left, but they were all still progressing towards getting to the battle zone. So when they reached a certain river, they saw the river and they went down to get a drink because they're all thirsty. They're walking for a long time. And the men that went down to the river and just took a thing of water and put it in their mouth showed that they were hasty to get to the battle, and they had faith in the Lord that he was going to deliver them. They were making no effort in trying to delay the time they wanted to. So they just took the water and they put it in their mouths. Versus the people that sat down, she says it shows that they were leisurely, or they were kind of lazy in a sense, where we'll get there eventually. Maybe this will be our last time getting water. We want to have this time to just kind of be here for a while. We don't want to keep going. We're getting worn out. And that's what separated them. The ones that said, hey, we're thirsty. Let's just grab water quickly. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's do this thing for God. Versus the people that just sat there and took their time and said, well, we'll get to it eventually.
Actually, that does make sense, though. That does make a lot of sense, putting it in that perspective. Yeah.
There is a story I read a while ago. It was a book about the first man to cross Antarctica by himself, and without any resupply. So this was
that?
definitely it was crazy. And the craziest part about it was that when he was younger, I think it was college age, he was on a trip somewhere, kind of out in the island areas of, definitely not like it wasn't Hawaii. It was out in definitely islands, and he was doing something, and there's fire involved, and with a rope, and it was supposed to be it was like a jump rope with a fire thing, and it was this fun thing that everyone was doing. But what happened is when he went in, he slipped and it caught around his leg, and it burned both his legs. And the thing is, when you're out there on an island, there's what are you gonna do? And they fly him to another hospital, and the doctor looks at him and he tells him you're never gonna be able to walk again. Like, in this guy's dream was to climb mountains and run marathons, and he'd never done that. And he says you can't even walk. And he remembers getting back home, his legs are completely burned, and he's been in a wheelchair for weeks now. And his mom gets him there in the wheelchair, sets him down in the kitchen, And she just stands only about 5 feet away. And it's all right, get up and walk to me. And he looks down his legs. And he's like, I can't. Like, my legs, look at my legs. And she tells me, just stand up, and he stands up. And of course, it's excruciating pain. He hasn't walked in months now. And it's from burn wounds that he's never supposed to be able to even walk with. But he stands up and he grabs a chair and he gets up and he basically just falls into her. He can't even walk. But that was a milestone for him. And even though he doubted completely, he's like, I can't walk. From all human views, he couldn't have walked ever again. But he got up and he fell into her arms. And this man went on to climb every single mountain, the tallest peaks of every single continent in the world in like a short amount of time, crossed the Antarctica, the entire continent, without resupplies, by himself, while doing a race. And he ran through, I think, the largest 10 marathons in all of the U.S.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And I think that we can look back at Gideon, going back to the beginning of 6. Gideon says, like, is God even with us? Like, did God not bring us out of Egypt? But look what's happening us now. He's forsaken us. He's saying, look at me. I can't get up. But God just keeps telling him, get up.
Yeah.
Get up, keep going. And yeah, he kind of, I guess you would say, we're saying he, in a sense, falls in 28. In that area where he's doing it at night. He's like, yeah, fine, I'll trust you, but, I'm not really going to do it. But one thing after another leads up to it, and eventually it comes down to it, where he's like, fine, I trust you. I think that's just such a cool story.
For sure. And like you said, they're all like the doubts. He ended up like God kept showing him, and he took that leap of faith to trust God too, which is great.
Do you have anything else you guys want to share?
I think it just goes to show, like you were saying, that no matter how much we doubt, and like what you said a while ago towards the beginning actually, even though God promised to be with him, there still had to be that effort. There still had to be, I forget where she says it, but Ellen White also has another quote that says, salvation comes by human works that combined with divine intervention, pretty much. And the only way they were going to be able to defeat that 400-to-1 ratio was by giving themselves 100% over to God.
Yeah.
And if they hadn't done that, who knows if the story would even have been, it probably would have been recorded, but it would have had a very different outcome.
Okay.
It would have been kind of like when, it just would not have gone well by any means. You had to have been, the 300 men that were there, they knew that each other, if any one of them had a doubt, it could have jeopardized their whole group. So I think that's why it wound up being so small, because that was the most faithful people, because if they hadn't had that, then one could have said something and caused doubt in another, and that could have spread to 2 others, and that could have spread to 2 others, and with only 300 people, that could have happened very quickly.
I think it's good to highlight, like, for sure, in chapter 8, like, they ended up like winning the battle. They have obviously won because they had God on their side. So it's like, it's great to see, like you said, like they kept, like he kept pushing through with like the doubts were there, and then God in the end like delivered him and delivered them in general. And in those 300 men, at least you knew they were giving 100%, because the other people, I don't know, like the Ellen White illustration there, like maybe they wouldn't have given 100%. So I mean, at least like they were all like willing to fight 100% for God, which is good, which that's what you want. So yeah,
it's a cool story. You see, we start at the beginning of what type of Christian was Gideon, and we all kind of agree he was the doubting Christian. And it's interesting, through this encounter with God, this very vivid encounter, he's actually talking to him multiple times, conversation, and from a doubting Christian, he becomes a warrior.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing to also point out is doubting is not necessarily wrong. It's what you do with that doubt that determines if it's human nature. You're gonna have doubts. I think every single one of us, or I know every single one of us has had doubts about something at some point. I know I have experienced doubts, and it's what you choose to do with that determines the outcome. With Gideon, we see that yes, he had these doubts, but he persevered through and said, I might need one more sign. I might need one more sign. I need one more sign. But eventually he stopped needing those signs, and he knows, okay, God really is with me and he's going to help us get through this. So I think applying that to our lives, yes, we may go through certain experiences and these trials. We may face our own Midianites, so to speak. But it's what we know God is with us. We know that if we put our faith in him, he's going to help us get through those things. It's just we have to choose to kind of jump off, like take a step off a cliff, hoping that, or knowing that you're going to be okay. You may perceive. I know there was an illustration that was kind of cool. We did over a school trip. You take a board and you have somebody stand on it, and you have somebody else. The person sitting on the board puts their hands on the shoulders of somebody else, and they have the person standing on the board close their eyes, and then the person that their shoulders are on, they start sitting down as they lift the board off the ground a little bit. So they're only hovering about 2 inches off the ground, but the person starts sitting down. So if I was holding onto you, you'd be going down. So I'd feel like I was raising up.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're completely suspended. The board's wobbling, and then they're just like, all right, you're gonna take your hands off my shoulders now. You take your hands off the shoulders. You just stand there on the board thinking you're like 5 feet up in the air. And they're like, all right, jump. And you're like, what? And it's funny to watch because the person's just like, I don't want to jump. And then they jump and they try to, when you try to brace for impact, you bend your knees.
Yeah.
They jump off this 2-foot thing and it just like fall on the ground. And it just shows that you know that God is the one that's watching you. You know he's the one looking on outside in, saying, if you jump off of this, I'm going to catch you. You're not going to fall you're not going to fall a tremendous amount. It's going to take faith. You're going to have to know that you're going to be okay by trusting me. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, even if you do decide to take that leap of faith and jump. And I think that's what all of those mighty men had to do that day.
Yeah, I think so.
Wrapping up in a very, I guess, practical sense, we may not have an angel of God come to us and burn up our meal, or we may not have anything else. But I think that's something we can just take away from this, and this is for you guys too, is while we may not have signs, we do have something that Gideon doesn't have, and that's the Bible. And I think that all of us can agree that a lot of the things that we doubt about, we can find answers in the Bible. Anyways, let's go with some of the questions, wrapping up here.
Yeah, so first we want to talk about where people are from. Today we have viewers from Sacramento, California, Campbell River. Yes, Campbell River, Canada, Chile, Peru, New Jersey, and Mount Shasta here in California. So we have viewers from all around. We want to see more people continuing to watch these live streams. It's been a tremendous blessing, I know, for all of us to watch them, and now to start sharing our experiences as well on this morning Sabbath school. We have a prayer request from Brenda_or491, and it says, pray for the whole world and that everything that's happening right now, that God continues to give us faith and intelligence to continue preaching his name. Thank you. Yeah, that's a very important one. We'll definitely keep that in prayer. We'll have the prayers at the end. We have another one from E.Rod21 that says, pray for all of us who are starting school, that he may strengthen us and give us intelligence. I can definitely relate to that. I know all of us have started school recently as well, so we will definitely need that prayer as well. And then we also have prayer requests for the fires that are happening right now. I know the camera's not pointing outside right now, but we're overlooking a
Valley of
forest,
smoke.
valley, and it's just all filled with smoke, and normally you can see for miles and miles on end. So I know that's definitely something that's impacting all of us around here. We're praying for the people that are being affected by these fires, so we'll go ahead and do those. We have also just one more announcement and a reminder for the Monday night Zoom at 7:30 on Monday evenings for the Hey Let's Pray initiative. And let's go ahead and have a prayer for all those different prayer requests. Do you want to do the prayer requests?
I can do, I guess, the fires one.
Sure,
yeah.
The fires, and I'm happy to do the other one as well, just for school, and then just being able to spread the gospel as well for all people that are involved.
All right, I'll pray for this. All right. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you that we can be here and have the Sabbath school and then fellowship together and study your word together. Please be with the whole world right now and our country and everything just going on right now. Just please help us to remember that you're the reason why we live, and you're the reason why we're here, and we are going to be brought back to you, and we want to bring as many people as possible back to you. And so just please remember to put God first in everything in our lives, and especially just remember, like, for the whole world, just trying to find you. And please be with California right now. It's all the fires. Please help them to be all put out. Please help the firefighters in fighting these fires. Please help the spread to be slower so that we can go back to, like, people can start going back to where they lived, and also just like having cleaner air and all that sort of stuff. And thank you again for this day, your Sabbath day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you guys for watching.
See you next time.
Hold on. Tell them to hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on. My bad.
We've got something for you at the end.
All right.
Okay.
So I get a question every once in a while about how can I overcome this dry devotional life that I have. I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm just going through the motions. And the only way I would be able to explain it is that my devotional lives are very adventurous. They're very interesting. I'm actually looking forward to it, and I actually have to stop sometimes because I'll go 2, 3, 4 hours. And the way that I do it is because I look at the Bible like a puzzle, right? The Bible is this big puzzle, and God is then wanting me to put the puzzle together to have the understanding of what is the message that He's trying to share with me. And so what I do is I study the Bible in a thematic way. What does that mean? That means I take a concept or a theory in the Bible or a phrase, and I try to find out what that means, not by what somebody else says or a dictionary says, but I let the Bible explain itself. Let's say you have a concordance and you come across a word or a phrase and you don't know what it means, or you're wanting to understand better what it means. What you do is by going to the concordance, it'll give you where that same word appears in the rest of the Bible. And so what you do then is you start going from Genesis all through the Bible, and you try to find out, and you let the Bible explain to you a concept. I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm really studying in the concept of covenant. And so what did I do? I went and looked for what is God speaking when He's talking about the word covenant? And so I grabbed the concordance, and I found out that there are over 250 times in the Bible that the word covenant appears. So what am I doing? I'm going verse by verse through the Bible, studying the concept of covenant and writing down, making annotations, trying to figure out what is God trying to explain to me. And so I've been doing through that for a couple of hours now, and I'm not even halfway through all the verses. So what is that doing? That's giving me a great picture of what God is trying to explain through His covenant with us. And so you can do this with so many other words. I mean, that's one of the things that I love to do, is study the Bible on a thematic level and just find out through different parts of the Bible, what is God trying to say. And that helps us to avoid a lot of mistakes. For example, I might come across a word and think, oh, this word means this for me. But what does it mean to God? What is God trying to portray? What is He trying to communicate? And so by doing that, He's speaking to us. He's letting us know, and He's giving us the definitions based on His word, not based on our contemporary understanding or what we think is trying to say, but what is God specifically trying to explain to us. Another thing that you can do, and I think that is also helpful, especially when we're reading the Old Testament. You know, sometimes some of these stories you're like, yeah, what does that have to do? Well, what I like to do when I'm reading the Old Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures is I ask God and I say, I want to see Jesus in this story, right? I want to see, how does this story relate to me? And so I look at, how am I getting to know the love of God? How is this talking about the plan that God has for me? And then also applying it to myself, right? Is it talking to me? Am I one of the people? Am I one of the characters that are involved in this story? Am I the one? Is God speaking to my heart and is trying to give a message to me as He was trying to give a message to the different Bible characters that appears? And so those are different tips that you can use to try to find it. You have to try to find a click. That might work for me. It might not work for you. So what you want to do is you want to ask God and say, God, I want the Bible to be incredible. I want the Bible to be adventurous. I want the Bible to be interesting. Show me how I can come to the Bible. Show me what attitude. Show me how I can present myself to Scripture